This Thursday, July 27th, MLB Betting Picks episode of the MLB Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by our Patreon. Score exclusive perks and content available only to our patrons at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. Welcome, everyone, to the MLB Gambling Podcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is Wednesday evening, currently 5:07 on the East Coast, here to get into the 5-game schedule on Thursday. A very, very short slate on Thursday in the MLB. But as we usually do, we'll handicap all four of the 5 games for you, and we'll get to that in a minute here. But joining me to help me break it all down, you guys know him as a voice, of course, here on the MLB Gambling Podcast and the NFL Gambling Podcast. It's Dylan Rockford. D-Rock, how you feeling, my man?
Feeling a little good. Back home in the studio in my own chair, so it feels good to be back home. Had a good trip, but yeah, we had some day baseball today. It was good. Cleveland gets us there for the run line, but other than that, Marlins impressive win over the Rays down in the Battle of Florida. But yeah, other than that, love to have day baseball.
Yeah, the Marlins burned me a little bit. I took the Rays on the run line -1.5, and anytime I was betting on the Miami Marlins, they couldn't seem to put up a run against the Rockies. So that's just a game of baseball. But did bounce back with the over in the Twins and Mariners game I gave out as my lock yesterday. So
nice.
No sweat off of the back, at least for today. I know, like I mentioned, it's a short slate for Thursday. So a bit of a news. Obviously, the game between the Tigers and the Angels, which was going to be played on Wednesday, got postponed and now is turned into a doubleheader on Thursday. So you'll get 2 games between the Angels and the Tigers. Same pitching matchup as we discussed on the pod yesterday with myself, Mal, and Lante. So it's still seeing Michael Lorenzen and Patrick Sandoval in, I believe, game 1. And then the second game, we'll get to that in a minute, between Chase Selseth and I believe it's Matt Manning on the mound for the Detroit Tigers. Do have some lines available on the odds screen. I know some of the books only have one game right now, which is between the Nationals and the Mets, but I do see it on the odds screen that the lines are starting to pop up, so I will reference to that. But before we get going here, let me tell everyone about the Sports Gambling Podcast Patreon. Do your part in the war against corporate gambling and sign up for the SGP Patreon. Ton of exclusive content, contests, and merch just for our patrons. Plus a monthly SGP Stories podcast, an ad-free, uncensored show highlighting the best stories from decades of being degens. There's even a Discord channel just for patrons. The Sports Gambling Podcast Patreon is a great way to score exclusive perks and support SGPN. sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon to check it all out. Again, that's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. All right, Dylan. Like I mentioned, 5 games, two of which is a doubleheader between the Angels and Tigers, like I mentioned. So we'll start with the first game on the board for tomorrow. Is going to be a 1:10 Eastern start between the Angels and the Tigers. I'm seeing Chase Selseth is going to get the start here for the Angels in game 1 of the doubleheader, and Matt Manning is going to get the start here for the Detroit Tigers in the first game. Lines in this game, I am currently seeing anywhere from -110 to even money. -110 for the Angels, and total is set at 9 for the first game between these two teams. Dylan, take us away for this game 1. What are you thinking?
Yeah, give me the small puppy. I actually made the Tigers a -115 favorite over the Halo, so I'm happy to take that even plus price that you mentioned at home. Good game yesterday between these two. You know, Tigers fought late. They took the lead, and then Angels wound up winning by 1. But for this game, I actually think the Tigers have the pitching advantage with Manning on the mound. I know Chase doesn't really go long into games for the Angels, but usually, even when he is pitching on the road, he just hasn't looked good, in my opinion. His hard hit rate has been high high on the road this season. He does give up more runs. And I like the way Matt Manning has pitched at home this season. Small sample size, only 2 starts, but he hasn't allowed a run in his 2 starts at home. His hard hit rate is in the low 30s in both of those games. So I do think they have the pitching advantage here at home. So for the first game, I do like the Tigers here at the even money.
Yeah, Matt Manning, like you mentioned, at least in this home starts, I know it's only, like you mentioned, 2-game sample, but they were against competent offenses in the Blue Jays and the San Diego Padres. I know the game against the Padres, you only pitched 2 innings, but they went on to lose that game, did the Tigers 14-3. But Matt Manning did his job. Maybe he got the hook too quickly in that game. But other than that, yeah, he's been pretty solid for this Tigers rotation. Kind of questionable on why he got pulled early in that Saturday start against Padres, but nonetheless, like you mentioned, Chase Elseth, at least on the road so far this season, 5 appearances, has allowed 6 earned runs in 10 1/3 innings pitched. He's also allowed 5 walks in that span to only 8 strikeouts, 2 home runs. He's also allowed in those games. He did have a good start in back on last Wednesday, against the New York Yankees. 5 2/3 innings pitched, only allowed 1 earned run, which was a home run, 2 walks, but he did also have 10 strikeouts in that game. But yeah, I'm with you here, Dylan. I think that the Tigers do have the edge in this game. I'm going to go with the Tigers on the money line here with you. So Tigers money line for me as well. Slightly towards the under, but not much for me on the total. Did you have anything on the total?
Yeah, it's sitting around 9, slight lean toward the under. I made my total 8.5. So yeah, I would lean under as well.
All right. So the second game of a doubleheader, again, it's Michael Lorenzen versus Patrick Sandoval. So if you missed that handicap, you can go back to the Wednesday pod and listen to that one between those 2 pitchers. So we'll move on to the nightcap here. We have the Washington Nationals. They are in New York City to take on the New York Mets at Citi Field. 7:10 Eastern start. I'm seeing Josiah Gray is going to get the start here for the Washington Nationals, and Kodai Senga gets a start here for the New York Mets. Currently seeing that the Mets are a -195 home favorite, +165 on the money line for the Washington Nationals. Total is set at 9 in this game. Run line -1.5, even money for the Mets. And for the Washington Nationals, +1.5, -120 here, D-Rock. We got your Mets. They're starting to win some games here. We got Kodai Senga at home. What are you thinking about this matchup?
Yeah, should be a good pitching matchup, I think. I saw the opening number. The Mets opened like a -230, -240 favorite.
I saw that as well.
Oh my God. I don't even want to lay $2 with them. So I only made the Mets a -205 favorite. So we're kind of close to me taking the dog, to be honest. But for the show, I do like the over 8.5. I got it at 8.5. Even at a 9, I like it. I made my total 9.1. I know Senga has been better at home this season than on the road, but the way these 2 teams have been swinging the bat, I think we can see a higher scoring game. The Nationals, they've been averaging 6.6 runs per game in their last 5 games, while the Mets, they're averaging 4.7 runs per game in their last 5. So we've seen these 2 teams play high-scoring affairs between them. 3 of their last 5 games have gone over the number. And if we look at JoJo Gray in his last 3 starts, all 3 of them have gone over the total. So we're seeing some high-scoring games there. We got winds blowing out right by LaGuardia Airport as well. So I think we could see runs tomorrow. I like the over. I would also look at Senga's K-prop. I know Nationals don't strike out, but in his last 5 home starts, he sat down 9, 8, 8, 9, and 3. He's averaging 7.5 strikeouts at home this season. And the last time he did versus the Nationals, he did strike out 7. So if it's around 5.5, 6.5, I would hit the over on that. But yeah, looking towards the over and Senga's K-prop.
Yeah, that was my first look in this game when I did see Senga on the mound was going to be his strikeout props. That number is obviously not out yet, but anything 6.5 or below, I will be on the over. And everything that, D-Rock just mentioned about how good he's been at home. And just look at his splits so far this season from home to road. At home at Citi Field, 3-2 with a 2.50 ERA in 9 home starts, allowed 14 earned runs in 50 1/3 innings pitched. On the road, he's 4-3 with a 4.07 ERA, 22 earned runs allowed, and 48 in 2/3 innings pitched. So definitely more comfortable at Citi Field. And like you mentioned there, D-Rock, that the Mets offense is starting to produce some runs and get some hits and scoring some runs. So I think that's kind of a breath of fresh air. And even post All-Star break in 2 starts for Kodai Senga, doesn't have a decision yet, but he still has a 2.89 ERA. He's only allowed 3 earned runs in 9 1/3 innings pitched, 12 strikeouts in those 2 games thus far post All-Star break for Kodai Senga. Josiah Gray, I think that one thing that kind of did stick out to me was his history against the New York Mets. Since the 2021 season, he's faced this Mets team 4 times. He has a 1-2 record with an 8.00 ERA. And again, he did face this Mets team back on April 25th, where he threw 6 shutout innings, allowed only 4 hits, 9 strikeouts in that game. But I think that was a completely different Mets team back in April compared to what we're seeing now, at least over this last week or so here. But prior to that, he had gotten into trouble against his Mets team. He allowed 6 earned runs back in the 2021 start, and then last season in 2 starts against this Mets team, 4 innings pitched, allowed 4 earned runs, took a loss in that matchup, and then September 2nd of 2022, last season, 5 innings pitched, allowed 6 earned runs in that game. And then prior to the start, like I mentioned, over the last prior to this season's start, he also gave up the home run ball. He allowed 5 home runs in those 3 starts prior to this season, did JoJo Gray. So maybe a Mets team total is something I will be looking at. I'm going to dig a little more into this matchup. But as far as the side, obviously don't want to lay the minus 195 price, but I would look at probably the run line here, minus 1.5 at even money for the Mets. But Senga strikeouts for sure, and then also looking at the Mets team total to go over in this game against JoJo Gray. All right, before we continue the conversation here, let me tell everyone about Underdog Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, and Underdog Pick'em is a great way to get down on a ton of NFL player props, and they're available in a ton of markets. Plus, plenty of opportunities to win in their daily MLB contests. And of course, make sure to enter Best Ball Mania 4, where first place gets $1 million. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com and make sure to use promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. Again, that's UnderdogFantasy.com using promo code SGPN. All right, let's get over to the next game on the slate for Thursday. It's going to be a NL Central matchup. We have the Chicago Cubbies. They are traveling to St. Louis to take on the Cardinals, a 7:45 Eastern start. Justin Steele is getting the start here for the Chicago Cubbies, and Miles Mikolas gets the start here for the St. Louis Cardinals. Lines for this game, I am seeing the St. Louis Cardinals are a minus 114 home favorite, plus 104 on the money line for the Cubs. Total is set at 8.5. D-Rock, what do you got for this game between the Cubs and the Cardinals?
Yeah, I didn't see lines up yet, but I did see, because I guess there was a TBD, but I did see Justin Steele going. But yeah, I made the Cubs a minus 120 favorite, minus 1.5. I need a plus 140. I made my total 8.8. So I guess I gotta take the plus price. What did you say? Plus 104 short price?
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing as an opening line.
Yeah, I'll take the underdog on the road. Like I said, I made them a minus 120 favorite. I know the Cubs aren't the best team on the road, but I just think this is a good spot for them. They're playing good baseball right now, 7-3 in their last 10. They've won 3 games straight against the Cardinals. One of them was against Miles Mikolas, who pitched in his last outing, and it just wasn't good. He gave up 5 runs on 11 hits. His hard contact rate was high that day. And this season in general, Miles Mikolas just hasn't been good at home. While on the other side, Justin Steele, he's 3-0 this season against the Cardinals, just 6 runs given up in 18 innings with 20 strikeouts. I just really like this spot for the Cubs tomorrow. So yeah, I didn't have a price, but I'll take the plus 104 short dog with the Cubs. I made them the favorite.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said there. Especially what stuck out to me is what you mentioned about Justin Steele's success against the Cardinals this season. 3-0 record for Justin Steele against the Cardinals this season. and each of the or two of those three games they've won by at least 2 earned runs. And Justin Steele has faced Jordan Montgomery, Adam Wainwright, and Jack Flaherty. The only pitcher that he hasn't faced yet is Miles Mikolas. And again, like you mentioned, the home and road splits for Miles Mikolas, 2-2 at home with a 4.95 ERA. He's allowed 31 earned runs in 56 and 1/3 innings pitched at home. On the road thus far this season, 4-3 with a 3.84. So he's been slightly better on the road thus far this season than he has been in St. Louis for the Cardinals. And the Cardinals have been alternating between win-loss. And he did face this Cubs team in his last start back on Saturday. 5 innings. He allowed 5 earned runs, 11 hits he allowed in that game as well to the Chicago Cubs. So, and Justin Steele, he's having a Cy Young caliber season. I know he's not up there with the likes of, Zach Gallen, Blake Snell, whose other name I'm missing that's in the National League. That's a Cy Young favorite right now. I was just looking at this market earlier. Who am I missing? Spencer Strider, who's the other name. Yeah. So for me, I agree with you again, man. Justin Steele just has had the success against this Cardinals team at a plus price for Justin Steele. I'm going to take that to the bank, and hopefully he makes it 4-0 against the Cardinals this season. And again, let's not forget that it's not a huge travel situation for Chicago because they're playing the White Sox in the same city versus the Cardinals. They're in Arizona. They have to travel from kind of the West Coast, or it is the West Coast, back home to St. Louis to take on in this matchup against the Chicago Cubs. So, I will be on the Cubbies with you with Justin Steele on the mound. All right, next game on the board here, D-Rock, we have the Cleveland Guardians. They are traveling to Chicago to take on the White Sox, a AL Central matchup. I'm seeing a 8:10 Eastern start. Tanner Bybee is going to get the start here for the Cleveland Guardians, and Dylan Cease I am seeing going to get the start here for the Chicago White Sox. Lines for this game, I am currently seeing that the White Sox are a -110 home favorite. Even money on the money line for the Cleveland Guardians. Total is set at 8.5. D-Rock, what do you got for this game?
So I didn't see lines when you before we jumped on, but you're reading them to me now. I made the White Sox a -135 favorite at home, -1.5. I need a +150. I don't see that as well. I made my total 8.2, so 8.5. I kind of would look under. You do have winds blowing in tomorrow in Chicago, but I guess it's just really hard for me personally just to advise people to take the White Sox. I saw Dylan Cease pitch in Minnesota last week, and he was good. His hard contact rate was at 18. He was lights out, but once that bullpen comes in, man, everything's just off the table. They lose a lot of games because their bullpen is so bad. They got walked off a few times this week by the Minnesota Twins. So I just don't know if I could go back to them. At -110 is a good price, but Cleveland, I do think Cleveland is good. They're 21-26 straight up. They've lost 4 straight. The White Sox, like I said, I think the Guardians are the better team. What's the price on them? +100?
So I just refreshed my page. So the White Sox now are at -120, and then even money for the Guardians. And then the run line, I don't know why it's +1.5 for the White Sox, but the total is at 8.5.
Yeah, I guess. Wow, money's already coming in on the White Sox then.
Yeah.
I guess if money continues to go in on them, if we could get a +120, +130, I probably would see myself on the Guardians just because, I do think they're the better team. I don't trust the White Sox in their bullpen. And the Guardians, they're 4-2 in their last 6. They won again today. Granted, they did play the Kansas City Royals, but I don't know. I would rather do that than bet the total, just because I am seeing the lines now. Under 8.5 is at even money, even though I made my total 8.2. I lean under, but I would definitely take the plus price with the Guardians, to be honest.
Yeah, this was probably the hardest game on this card to handicap for me because I just don't know what I'm going to get from Dylan Cease on a daily, or not daily basis, but when he does start, right? Because he's really been inconsistent this season versus Tanner Bybee, at least over his last 5 starts for the Guardians, he's 3-0 with a 1.21 ERA. He's only allowed 4 runs in 29 and 2/3 innings pitched. He has gotten a little bit of trouble on the road where he is 2-1 with a 4.38 ERA, but the Guardians have won 4 of his last 5 starts. And you take a look at some of the opponents. I mean, he is through 7 shutout innings against the Philadelphia Phillies. He allowed 2 earned runs to the Texas Rangers, 6-1 victory against the Royals, 6-0 against the Cubs, 4-2 against the Brewers. Victories there. So I think that if Bybee's able to keep his walks under control, because in 3 of his last 5 starts, going back to that Milwaukee, Chicago, Kansas City Royals game, he gave up 4 walks, 2 walks, and 4 walks to the opposition. But in back-to-back starts against the Rangers and the Phillies, he's only allowed 1 walk each in each of those starts. Yeah, I think I'm leaning here with the Guardians as well. And this might just be Dylan Cease's last start for the White Sox before he may get traded. We don't know, but there are some rumors swirling about Dylan Cease potentially being on the move as we approach the trade deadline. But Dylan Cease has had pretty good success against this Guardians team as well, which kind of just leads me towards betting the under with you as well. I'm dating this back to since 2021. Dylan Cease, again, it's a win-loss type of situation for Dylan Cease. So Guardians for me, if you're making me pick a side, but I do love the under 8.5 in this game. If you do want to bet the White Sox, like Dylan mentioned, you would probably want to do it in the first 5 innings because this bullpen will come in and fuck it up for you. I've learned that the hard way this season. So, I will take Guardians even money and then under 8.5 at even money in this game.
And real quick, Munaf, don't sleep now, but the Guardians bats have kind of woken up this past 2-3 weeks right before after the All-Star break. 13th in batting average, they're 4th in triples, they're the best team that doesn't strike out, they're 6th in doubles, 12th in stolen bases, they're aggressive on the base paths as well. So watch out. I trust the Guardians much more, especially the way they've been hitting. You see Jose Ramirez have another big shot today. So I think they're just a much better team. So to get plus money, I gotta take them. And you mentioned Dylan Cease being on the move. Did you hear the Rays are interested in taking Lance Lynn?
Why?
When I saw that, my mom was watching TV with me. She was like, "Is he good?" I go, "No, I don't understand why they want him." So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that real quick.
Yeah, I mean, you saw my reaction. Why? It's not a good season. I know he's pitching tonight, right, against the Chicago Cubs in the matchup. But yeah, man, I don't know. I don't think Scott mentioned this as well when we were kind of doing playoff updates last week. Is that we're really not talking about how the Rays have kind of been lackluster, I guess I should say, after that hot start that they had against some of the bottom teams in the MLB. They got off to 11-0, 12-0, 13-0 start, but since that point, they've just been playing 500 baseball, and the Baltimore Orioles have now caught them in that AL East division. So something to keep an eye on. Again, they got walloped today by the Miami Marlins, 7-1 in that game, and it made me look like an idiot. But
yeah, no,
it'll be
I
interesting
agree.
to see. I feel like there's some good. I want to say I feel like this MLB trade deadline is going to be really active, though.
I hope so, and I do think they need pitching, but it's not Lance Lynn. I don't think he's going to come in and save the day for them. But you're right. I mean, after the hot start, I'm like so surprised that the Orioles are 2 games ahead of the Rays, and I think it's on the road. At home, they're really good, but on the road, they're just a 500 ball club. So they really need to pull it together, because when the playoffs do come, if they get an away game, they might lose.
I mean, it's the same story about the Rays every single year. Like they get in, they dominate the regular season, they get to the playoffs, and it's usually a first round exit. If they're in the wild card game or there's a divisional round series for them, they're usually out. And I think it's happened in back-to-back seasons for them. I think last season they got bounced by the Guardians, and I think the previous season I think the Red Sox took them out. I want to say in the divisional series as well. So you never know what you can expect from the Rays, especially in the playoffs, because again, they pride themselves on pitching. Like we've talked about some of the great arms that they have, and I know they've dealt with a lot of injuries in that pitching rotation, but at some point you have to also score runs to win ball games. And I think they just haven't been able to do that in the in the playoffs at least.
Yeah.
So that's a short schedule. I mean, only 5 games on the board tomorrow. There are some conflicting things now. I'm seeing Shohei Ohtani may get the start for the Angels tomorrow in game 1. So definitely look out for that for the Angels. Again, they usually not a lot of teams usually change up their pitching rotation when they do get into a doubleheader. So keep that in mind. Might see Ohtani getting the start tomorrow for the Angels in game 1. All right, Dylan. One order of business left. It's going to be hard pickings here for us with only about 4 to 5 games here, but we'll do our best to give out some picks here, whether obviously with the lock-in dog. So you want to lead us off here?
Yeah, I'll lead us off. For my lock, nothing really stood out, but we'll go to Queens. We'll go to the Mets in the national games. I will take the over 8.5. I still like the 9. Like I said, I made my total 9.1. I know Senga's been much better at home, but Munaf made a great point. Just look at Josiah Gray's history against the Mets. Mets usually light him up. Hopefully, Pete Alonso is waking up a little bit. Jeff McNeil had a good game the other day. So both teams are scoring runs. I think we'll see a higher scoring game. Plus, we have winds blowing out as well. That should help us. So I'm going to go over for the Mets and Nationals. And for my lock, I'll actually take a dog. I love the Cubs tomorrow, to be honest. So plus 104. It's a short dog, but I still like them as my favorite. I think they should be the favorite. I made them the minus 120 favorite. Justin Steele, he's going under the radar, and he's not even in the top 5 or 6. I was looking at the National Cy Young Award, and you could get him 25-1 right now. So I think there's a little value there with Justin Steele if he continues the way he's been going. But yeah, just 6 runs given up in 18 innings against this Cardinals team. He's 3-0. Cubs playing good baseball right now. So going to be a hot one. It's supposed to be 97 tomorrow in St. Louis, but I do like the Cubs tomorrow to get the win.
Yeah, I'm there with you on the Cubs. Justin Steele, like we talked about, 3-0 this season against the Cardinals. Just been absolutely dominant. I think that's going to continue on Thursday night for Justin Steele. So I will take that as my dog. I mean, I know it's even money or around plus 104, plus 105, depending on your shop. I mean, we have 2 games right now that have even money as underdogs. So, I mean, it's hard to give out a pick here. So that'll be my dog with you on the Chicago Cubs, or as my dog for the Chicago Cubbies. For my lock, I'm gonna ride your Mets, man. Give me the minus 1.5 at even money. I trust Kodai Senga at home more. Obviously, we talked about the home and road splits for him. But I think more so it's about the bats that have, looks like they're waking up for the New York Mets over the past week or so here. And I know JoJo Gray, like I mentioned, in the 2021 season and in this 2 starts in 2022, got a little bit roughed up against this Mets team. I know he had a good start earlier this season, but that was all the way back in April. And again, right now, I know we've shit on the Mets a lot this season, but at least in current form, Dylan, and you've already spoken to this, that the bats are looking like they've woken up a little bit. So hopefully they can carry that momentum from Yankee Stadium to Citi Field. And again, not a huge travel situation when you have these kind of intercity matchups between these 2 teams. So I'll go with the Mets minus 1.5 even money as my lock. And then for my dog, Chicago Cubs. So right now I see even money on DraftKings. But again, like Dylan said, shop around. You'll be able to find a better price around plus 104, plus 105 on the Chicago Cubs. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the MLB Gambling Podcast. Short and sweet, about 4 to 5 games on Thursday. Not really used to seeing this. Well, we're kind of used to seeing it earlier in the season, but as we kind of go through the season, we usually get about 6, 7, 8 matchups on Thursday. So unfortunately for this Thursday, at least we only have about 4 to 5 matchups. But again, Dylan, I won't be surprised if that Tigers and the Angels game is postponed again, because the weather that I'm seeing is probably going to be even worse, either going into tonight or maybe even tomorrow. But again, good reminder to check out the website, sportsgamblingpodcast.com. Just hit that MLB Picks tab. You'll see our picks up there daily. D-Rock, anything else we need to mention before we get out of here?
No, just be watching some baseball tonight, going to see Oppenheimer. I don't know if anyone has seen it, so hopefully it's good. I heard it's really long, but yeah, going to see that. I got the Mets tonight, first 5. Me and Mal on the same page there. Gonna fade Lance Lynn again over 2.5 earned runs. And I do like the Red Sox and Braves under. So got some plays for tonight as well. So good luck to everyone who has some bets.
Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow as usual for the Friday game. So look out for us then. If you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube channel for the MLB Gambling Podcast, please do so. And if you haven't left us a rating or review, really, really helps grow the show. I haven't seen many reviews come across, so I'm a little bit disappointed with our listeners. So do us a favor, leave us a rating and review. It really helps us grow the show. All right, like I mentioned, we'll be back tomorrow. Good luck with your bets. Let's break these books off and let it ride.